Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to take a look at players that get a little bit too much laid off at the top through too much rotation in their forearms through the backswing. Often this goes back to how a player achieves rotation. So if you're a player and you don't get too laid off, but you're looking to improve your rotation and your movement through backswing, you still may get a few little pieces here from this video. Thanks once again for tuning in. So for today's video, I've got a couple of players in mind that I coach. One is online, I coach them regularly through Zoom lessons. Another is a professional player that I've coached for a couple of years now. And the pattern that is pretty similar between the players is that at the top, they're always leaning towards getting the club quite laid off. And then in transition, the club then wants to move a little bit this way, almost steepen in that initial transition move. And that goes back to if a player uses a lot of rotation in their forearms on the way back and gets the club into this position here, it really leaves no room for that typical, like almost shallowing motion with the rotation of the forearms in transition. So if we use all that rotation on the way back, the only place to really go is this way. So we have to look further back through towards the start of the swing, what's happened before that the transition phase there, to lead to the player having to use too much rotation through the forearms to complete the backswing. And with both players, it was just very evident that in the start of the swing, if I was to go down the line here, from a shoulder tilt standpoint, early in the swing, the lead shoulder would move down and the head would move down with the lead shoulder. So in the initiation of the backswing, to move the handle and the club away, there is very much a downward move with the shoulder and the head to get the club head to move up. And that's something I see very commonly with players that are trying to get the club head to move in the start of the swing. They're using their body a little bit too much to do it. And if I was to show you face on, what happens with the bends in the upper body when that happens is you'll see how the lead side bend gets very short here. So we get shorter on the lead side in comparison to longer on the trail side. And from a rotation standpoint, early in the swing, we're looking to maintain that equal amount of length on each side, the distance from the top of the hip to the bottom rib. We want that to stay the same there. So what we work on with those players, or what I work on with those players, is that can they move the club head away without, so we still want that nice takeaway sequence where the club head's moving in a nice relation to the hands, the arms and the body, but can we get the club to move away in a very similar fashion, but by creating length across the lead shoulder here. So as far as like length, I'm looking to create that motion there where we're creating more stretch, more length across the lead shoulder, as opposed to when we go down this way, you can see we're not really creating any stretch across this lead shoulder in the start of the takeaway there. So to initiate the swing, we're looking for that push-pull motion where we create that length across the lead shoulder, and that's what we're looking for. So if we create that length, we're going to be able to keep our head at the same height. The shoulder is not going to look as though it's moving down so much. I'm going to maintain the bends that we want in the start of the swing on each side here. So to essentially, to get less laid off in the start of the swing, we need to initiate the swing with more creating length across that lead shoulder there. That encourages a better rotation because we're not lead side bending anymore and the head stays tall. So now we can actually be able to rotate better with the rib cage to the top, keeping the club in a position that should look a little bit more vertical, a little bit more down the line, but because we haven't had to use the forearms. So when a player goes this way early in the swing, as these players were, to complete the backswing because the rib cage is now not in a good position, they would use the rotation of the forearms to complete to the top. So as always here, another video where it's like we have to look back to early in the swing, what's leading to, what are the precursors to a particular pattern that stands out later in the swing. And we can even go one step further back. We can always look at how the player's setting up. We can look at the player's intentions for the shot and how they're approaching the shot, just internally, how they're thinking about the shot. All those things, going back even another step, are going to have an influence on the takeaway phase. So just to be simple here, once again, straight on, we want to feel as though we're pushing down on the handle here, creating length across this lead lat here. And some players have actually said to me that when they do that move, it feels as though they're almost disconnecting that protraction of the lead shoulder there in the start as they're creating that length, which I don't mind. It's a different feel for them, which is always a good thing sometimes, in that a different feel just creates that very clear difference between what they did and where we want to go. But in a nice way as well, when a player does that move there, you'll see how much space I create between my arms and my body, and that space allows for the good rotation of the rib cage as well, because you want that space. Too much, the arms getting too close, less room usually restricts the rotation. So hopefully here, if you're laid up at the top here, you've got a couple of ideas now of how you could work on that reach away there. You'll notice here as well, I'm not using too much of my lower body, more just reaching down the line here. A reference point I often give to players when they're doing this is, one, allow your rib cage to rotate freely. Butt of the club points at the ball when the hand is waist high, and that's a reference that I often work towards with these players, and it should feel quite different where the head is in space as well. If a player goes down here, often by waist high, the head is in the center or towards the lead foot. If you allow the rotation there, the head should almost glide nicely to inside the trail foot.